Do the Miami Dolphins have enough depth on their offensive line? We're exploring the dynamics of the group from more angles than one here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, NFL staff writer for A to Z Sports. Want to give a special welcome and shout out to our everydayers because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. Today on the show, Noah Fant makes his decision this morning. It's not good news for the Dolphins, but we're going to start with the offensive line group as a whole because I know some of the practice reports that have been coming out, and I had a chance to see before they put pads on. But I did get a pretty fair sampling of 4 practices to be able to kind of get a gauge of where this Dolphins offensive line is at. And the questions that exist right now are a little bit less about how good does Patrick Paul look? Is James Daniels going to get cleared from his Achilles recovery? It's a little bit more about the depth, which is, I think, where a lot of people's initial questions for this unit were not in regards to the depth. It was, hey, what's the floor going to be of the 5? And I think you've already started to see some obvious separation with who's going to be your starting 5. We've had some players that have not been participating, and I think they are, well, you have 2 of the top 8 on your depth chart are not participating thus far in practices as they get geared up with their own individual outlooks. So I think the domino effect that it creates is challenging, right? Because the Dolphins' projected starting 5 is Patrick Paul at left tackle, Jonas Savaiinaea at left guard, Aaron Brewer at center, James Daniels at right guard, and then Austin Jackson at right tackle. Pretty fair to say those 5 guys are a lock to make the 53-man roster, right? Beyond those 5, it's kind of a wild, wild west where I do think the financial commitment that the team made to Larry Borom, which is a 1-year, $2.5 million, and that $2.5 million is fully guaranteed. And we're going to talk about Larry Borom and what he's looked like. But I think financially speaking, he's in a position to command a 53-man roster spot because they fully guaranteed his salary as a free agent signing. Everybody else, like Liam Eichenberg's on this 4-year veteran benefit contract where he's getting more cash than he's getting credited against the cap. So there's a surplus cap savings there that might motivate you to keep him. Andrew Myers on a rookie contract as an undrafted free agent. Daniel Brunskill signed on a vet minimum deal to come in, and he signed 9 days ago. So kind of just getting back in the swing of things. You have Keon Smith, who was a restricted free agent that you gave a 1-year tender to with no guarantees. That's the next 5 in the queue, right? Anything beyond that, I think when you start drawing the lines in the sand, who are the locks, who's the bubble, who's out? Ryan Hayes, the 2 UDFAs, Addison West and Josh Preeb, Jackson Carman, Braden Daniels. They just signed Jalen McKenzie because, Abena Easy just went on IR. He signed over the weekend on Sunday and then is on IR by Wednesday. And obviously you had the injury to Barry Matos. It's a really scary thing. He's been an international pipeline player for you, but not a 53-man roster player. So you kind of, I think you have a pretty hard line in the sand with 10 guys that could make the roster. And the evaluation to this point's been challenging because Brewer is dealing with some kind of soft tissue, lower body thing, not said to be a concern by any means for the start of the regular season. Mike McDaniel said this past week, you'll see him sooner rather than later, right? And the reports are he's been an active participant off on the side doing a lot of work to kind of go through whatever final rehab he has for whatever tweak or whatever it was that he's dealing with. But the entire domino effect is your second string center, Andrew Meyer, is now playing first team center. So now Brunskill, who I think is better suited to play at guard, is now playing a lot of second team center. Up until this point in time, James Daniels has been on kind of the workload, and he said with his media availability this week, his next meeting with his doctors, kind of when they're going to get the final clearance to lift all restrictions, and he can be full steam ahead, which will be great. But in the meantime, you've been seeing some Keon Smith as the guy who spells James Daniels at guard. So the end result here is your second team offensive line has the third string center and is down potentially the third tackle and playing with the fourth and fifth tackles as the second team offensive line. And those elevated guys on the second team offensive line, I don't think are going to make the roster. And like Brunskill's not playing in his best spot. And Lee Meichenberg's not dressing. So realistically, with Brewer out and when Keon Smith elevates to take reps for James Daniels, you're talking about 3 of the 5 guys that are in the second offensive line range that are either up with the ones or they're not practicing right. So if you've got 3 out of your 5 offensive linemen who are the third stringers, and then one of those other 2 is not playing his best position, the evaluation of the unit's not going to look very good. So I think that's what complicates kind of the picture that's being painted with the evaluation of the second team offensive line, because when you put it into context, the guys that are working on the second team offensive line right now, a lot of them, the second team guys are either elevated up because Brewer's not practicing, or they're out, or because like Eichenberg's not dressing, or Brunskill's not playing the ideal spot, or Keon Smith's tag teaming in to keep James Daniels' rep count low while he gets his final clearance. Now, individually, I think you can have some conversations, but I think you look at this offensive line and you probably, from an economics perspective, have 6 locks. And then you've got the bubble guys. We're going to define them, kind of work through who I think gets carried, who should be carried, who you should be maybe looking at the waiver wire for when you get the cuts to see if you could find a better option. I think all of those elements exist. All those storylines are in play. We're going to talk about it next here on Locked on Dolphins. Make sure you guys stick with us. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends on the fairway, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need that little extra boost to stay sharp. And Energized Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the Bev card. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions, and the code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing shot you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. Tease it at the top, but I do think you have 6 total locks right now, unless you do the Dan Feeney thing, right? Which maybe you can do, where you find an upgrade opportunity and you offload Larry Borom via trade, which would be the Dan Feeney thing, where they signed Dan Feeney and he got a pretty handsome contract, and then you get in the camp and they traded him for 6. Do I think you're going to have that market for Larry Borom? No. If you'd have told me they had that market for Dan Feeney, would I have said that they would have had it? No. So, you never know. But I think it's fair to say Patrick Paul, second year of a rookie deal. James Daniels, 3 years, 24. Aaron Brewer, 3 years, 21. Jonas Fainaya, rookie contract, first year. Austin Jackson, contract extension and restructure, plus a 1 year, $2.5 million for Larry Borom that is fully guaranteed. Those, I think, are your locks, 6 locks. Some offensive line rooms carry 8 guys plus practice squad guys. Some offensive lineman rooms carry 9 guys plus practice squad guys. Some offensive line rooms carry 10 guys. I think that's the challenge that Miami faces, because you're going to carry 3 quarterbacks. It's the nature of the beast. So, and then you're going to carry a fullback to go along with however many backs and however many tight ends. And if Darren Waller, and we're going to talk about Noah Fant here in segment 3, but he's not coming. He chose to go to Cincinnati. If you carry Darren Waller and Pharaoh Brown and Julian Hill, and do you carry 3? Do you carry somebody else to be the flex hedge against Darren Waller because Darren Waller retired last year? Do you carry 5, 4, 6 wide receiver? Like, it's the numbers game is tough. You could probably get away with 24 on offense to 26 on offense. So 24, 25, or 26 players on the offensive side of the ball. So you get a 53-man roster, you got 3 specialists, that goes 25 and 25, you go right down the middle. I think the weakest spot that you have right now is fair to call out. Larry Borom's not look good. Larry Borom struggled in the time that I was there, and it sounds like the up and down nature of playing at tackle. When I watched him on tape, I thought he was a player who was better at guard. They signed him, and other than Keon Smith coming back healthy this year, and again, he's getting some of the time that he gets is at right guard. Felt like the swing tackle spot was kind of the question mark, and they obviously signed Larry Borom with an intent that he would play tackle in some degree, and that was a big thing in the spring was Larry Borom, swing tackle, Larry Borom, swing tackle. Well, it was a rough first week for Larry because he, as a second-team guy with a third-string guard playing next to him as the second-team swing tackle, regardless of what side he's playing on, because Eichenberg's not dressing and Myers elevated and Brunskill's playing guard. Right? So you got Jackson Carman as the second-string guard, not because he's earned a second-string spot in a backup role and is going to make the team, but because of the shuffling of everything else. Now, oh, by the way, you got block Chop Robinson. Oh, by the way, you got block Bradley Chubb. Oh, by the way, you got to block Willie Gay. Oh, by the way, you got to block Jalen Phillips. Right? It's just like the depth of the edge rush room and what that looks like with being a new player and then having guys that are even a step below where I feel Larry Borom is playing next to you. It's a hard world to live in. And if Keon Smith's going to be somebody who's getting opportunities at guard, and you go Larry Borom and then what? Ryan Hayes? No, thank you. I think you actually have a pretty decent chance that Keon Smith is the best non-starter tackle option you have on the roster. I think that bodes well for Keon Smith to make the roster. Just like I think Larry Borom's financial commitment and the fact that he does have guard flexibility, and I think he'd be better at guard than he is at tackle because he's in more of an enclosed space. I think that protects him as well to make the roster. So right now, I kind of feel like Borom might be the first one to get the call, but between Borom and Keon Smith, I think both those guys do make the roster, and Smith might be your best tackle backup option. That's a spot I'd be looking at waivers. I'd like to have a little bit more confidence with that group. Now, I think Keon Smith, physically, he looks great as far as like the way he's remodeled his body, and he had the year last year with the rehab. And from the player he was when he first came into the player he is now from like a physical frame and build perspective, I think he deserves all the flowers in the world. I think he's done an amazing job. But if it's your third tackle, yeah, you'd like a little bit more stability. You'd like a little bit more upside. Now, we'll see if they get an opportunity at tackle. But I look at Liam Eichenberg, and I look at Daniel Brunskill, and those are guys that even though they have played tackle in the past, I do not believe they are tackles. And I believe if you play them at tackle, you are also playing with fire. It's not a good world to live in. But those guys, I think what's interesting is the skill set of Brunskill and Eichenberg, to me, both feel redundant. Where I think Brunskill's a better player based off of his film resume and based off of his functional balance and how he's able to keep his frame. But neither one of them is like super twitchy. Neither one of them is super big or super dense or super strong. Brunskill just kind of gets the scheme. And I think that's the divide with Liam is it's just like he understands the concepts very clearly. He gets complimented a ton for his intelligence, and he's a tough dude because he's played through a lot of gnarly injuries. But the play in doing so hasn't been particularly good. Brunskill's limited in some of the same ways, but I think he understands how to use his body within the framework of the offense a little better based off of what he looked like in San Francisco. And Meyer has done a nice job at center as far as like keeping his head on straight. I feel like Meyer is the kind of player you hang on to. I would love to see him get some opportunities to play at guard. Now, it doesn't resolve your tackle problems. But if you ask me right now, I'm probably holding on to all 10 of the projected starting five, and then Keon Smith, Daniel Brunskill, Andrew Meyer, Liam Eichenberg, Larry Borom. And then I'm looking to find a waiver claim that I feel like has a little bit more ceiling at tackle. And if I get it, who do you cut? I don't think you cut Borom and take the bath on the $2.5 million. I think you keep him because I do think, again, I think there's ceiling inside at guard. But then you have Brunskill can play center, Meyer can play center, and Eichenberg can play center. I know Brunskill and Eichenberg can play guard. I feel like Brunskill's best at guard. I think Eichenberg's probably best at center, but Meyer, I don't know, can play guard right now. So it creates kind of this challenging, I think the obvious decision based off of the skill set would be, I think you would move on from Liam Eichenberg because I don't think he has tackle appeal. The question that I have, and I'm going to look it up right now because I want to speak intelligently. So I want to know what the financials are. He signed a 1-year, $2.25 million that is guaranteed. So it's a little bit lower than what Borom got, but it is a fully guaranteed contract for Liam Eichenberg. So Brunskill, what's working against Brunskill is Brunskill signed in camp and signed a 1-year minimum contract where he's getting the veteran salary benefit where he signed for minimum for a player of his tenure is $1.17 million, but the cap charge is only 1.03, right? And the league does this so that once guys get enough tenure where their minimum salary is high enough, teams will then have incentive to say, well, I don't want to pay the guy with the higher minimum salary to be a veteran backup. I'll just play the cheaper player. And then it flushes guys out of the league faster unless you have something like this to say, well, I can pay Brunskill his minimum salary based on his tenure. But from a cap purpose, it's the same as keeping a third-year player on a minimum salary deal instead. So it helps extend the lifeline of players to continue to play and earn 53-man roster spots. But the details on this contract, according to Spot Track, it is a veteran salary benefit contract, $1.17 million in cash, which is veteran minimum for the tenure that he has as a 8th-year player, but only goes against the books for 1.03. I think that contract is the easiest one to part ways with. So Brunskill really needs to put his foot on the gas here and make his presence more attractive than that of Eichenberg, because you're talking about what's going to be a backup player. The difference being one has no guaranteed money and the other has $2.25 million in guaranteed money. So we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves a little bit about talking about cut down decisions, but that has to be a part of your thought process because a lot of this offseason process has been about cash budget and being more efficient and trimming the fat off of it and not paying for players. Like you're taking some nasty medicine for players who aren't here this year to move on from so that you can have healthier books long-term. Do you want to take a bath on Eichenberg at $2.25 million to cut him? I don't think you would want to do that, just like you wouldn't want to take a bath on $2.5 million for Borom. But so right now, I think you keep the 10 because I think that allows you to keep your better players and then have your guaranteed money players also on the roster. But if you get a better tackle option that pops up, that's where I think you're going to make a hard decision. And I don't think they're super eager to move on from Andrew Meyer because he's the rookie contract with multiple years of player control. Talk a little bit about Noah Fant next here on the program. That's next. Make sure you guys stick with us. Do you ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can be. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility control over all of your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center where you can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Perhaps it's having all of your purchases laid out for you to see and process at one time. It could be game changers. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off of your first year. I have, I feel like Woody from Toy Story 3. So long, partner. Noah Fant choosing to sign this morning with the Cincinnati Bengals. Go play with Joe Burrow. Collective Dolphins tight end room. That sound you hear is the collective exhale. Because I think if Noah Fant would have come in here, I think he'd have put every single one of those cats on notice. Not because I think Noah Fant is an infallible player, and I don't think it's a critical loss for the Dolphins that they didn't get Noah Fant, but he is a player who can play with his hand in the dirt. I don't think he's a particularly impactful player as a blocker with his hand in the dirt. But if you're going to replace the Jonnu Smith role, I think Fant was the right kind of skill set to do it for what he could do with the ball in his hands and for the athletic profile that he has. And I think he's a better space blocker than Jonnu Smith or Darren Waller. And Darren Waller has no guarantees on his contract. So Fant coming in, I think, would have threatened your passing down opportunities for your inline players. When you go 12 personnel, I think it'd have been a no-brainer. And I think Darren Waller, with what he's trying to prove and work his way back and get into football shape, but working off on the side right now, this is valuable time. And that's a concern that I had. I go back to training camp last year, and Tua was asked about getting chemistry with the receivers and was like, I build chemistry by taking reps with these guys. And Odell's off doing 60-yard striders in the indoor during practice. Oh, guess who didn't get on the same page with Tua at any point last year? Odell Beckham. So that's a concern that you do have with Darren Waller as he gets back into football shape. Where if you'd have had somebody who could fill the same role, who'd have come in, you probably would have started to see some separation as far as a guy who's able to collect routes and time on task right now. Don't know any of the financial terms for Noah Fant, but I do know he chooses to go to Cincinnati to play in a tight end room with Mike Gesicki as part of a 12 personnel group. That would be Fant, Gesicki, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. It's a lot of size. It's a lot of physicality. It'll be a riddle the Dolphins have to solve late in the year because they play in prime time against the Bengals this year. There'll be a lot of points scored in that game, I have a feeling. But for Fant's fit with them, they're a team that has not had a lot of success ever running the ball under this iteration. And I think that's something that's going to continue to be the case. When you consider the Bengals under Zac Taylor have been a team that has ranked from a rushing perspective. We're going to take a walk through it here. They were 30th in attempts last year, 20th in yards per attempt, 4.1, 25th in rushing touchdowns with 11, and 30th in yards, right? So not very well represented last year. They were 30th in attempts in 2023, 22nd in yards per attempt, 4.0, 31st in yards, 15.27, and then they were 19th in rushing touchdowns with 12 in 2023. You go to 2022. They're 24th in attempts, some progress. They got out of the 30s, but 29th in yards, 29th in yards per attempt, 3.8. And then they were 19th in rushing touchdowns again with 14. You go to 2021. Zac Taylor's still here. This was the Super Bowl run year. 19th in rush attempts, 23rd in yards, 4.0 yards per carry at 26th in the NFL. So they've gone 4.0, 3.8, 4.0, 4.1 the last 4 years running the ball. And this is where if the Dolphins are serious about being a better running team, you can have 12 personnel out there. Like the Bengals and the insiders have kind of already gassed up the 12 personnel mismatch and the vision they have along with Mike Gesicki and put Gesicki in the slot, this, that, the other thing. Dolphins fans, we saw what Mike Gesicki looked like as kind of a blocker, right? And playing on the franchise tag and trying to have an elevated role in 2022. Now, I think Cincinnati and the way that they play and continuing to be a high-volume passing offense, they might pass the ball 700 times this year. But when you want to run the ball, a tight end room of Noah Fant as the Y, I think Fant is a good blocker as an F, but as a Y, I think he's probably you classify him as subpar. And then Gesicki, whether he's a Y or an F or anything in between, it's not a strength at all. So I think for Miami, the loss is that you didn't have this opportunity to upgrade over the risk of Waller in the F. And I think I think Fant's a better blocker than Waller. But if your vision is we're going to run 12 and Fant's going to be the Y tight end and that's your sales pitch to get him, and you get him in there and you say, well, we got Joe Burrow throwing you the ball and we're going to throw the ball all these times and whatnot. That's fine. But my question is, how balanced are they going to be on offense? Because they have historically not been a very balanced offense. And it's worked fine because they can throw the ball all over the yard. And when they get hot, they're very hard to stop. But there's going to come a time where somebody's going to overwhelm you up front, and they're going to play soft enough or they're going to tackle well enough where you're going to limit your explosive plays in a game. And that will be what the Dolphins will be charged with trying to figure out how to do when the chips are down when they play this year. So we'll see Noah Fant in, week 16 against the Bengals? A little bummed out, no doubt. But if he feels that's where he's going to get his most run, it's a big opportunity for him on a one-year deal to reinvoke his market. If I were Noah Fant, and I'm not just saying it because I host Locked On Dolphins, I would want to come play for the offense that just did for Jonnu Smith what the Dolphins offense did for Jonnu Smith. Knowing full well I might not get 111 targets, but playing in the same offense as Gesicki as the primary receiving tight end, and then also Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, we might get 50 targets this year for Noah Fant. And if that's fine, then that's fine. That's going to do it for us here today on the show. No Noah Fant. A complex look at the Dolphins' offensive line depth, kind of forecasting it forward. The spot that I would be looking for based off the first week and a half of camp if you had an upgrade opportunity. We got into all that, and who knows what tomorrow brings. That's going to do it for me here today. Kyle Krabs, keep it locked in. Right here, Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. Appreciate you guys for checking out the show. I'll talk to you all again soon.